right, card collectors, here we are again, another episode of what I like to call WTCtv. I don't know why, probably from my old RVD days when we did RVD TV. I'm bringing back Mr. Adam Gellman again. How are you, sir?
What's up? I'm doing great. Glad to be back. I always like doing these things.
I figured that I bring you back because I can't think of anybody better to bring back to talk about what I want to talk about today, and that's the digital world of collecting, of trading cards.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping at some point in time we can incorporate some other aspects of digital stuff into this. But anybody who's watched the previous episode we did with you, I talked to you about the Top Slam app. And I just could not wrap my brain around not owning a digital, owning a physical card in my hand. Like, I'm so used to having a physical card. But since then, I got a notification just now that I have enough money to spin the wheel. Since then, I have become addicted to this app.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spent a grand total of like $5 to buy a special card. But other than that, it's just everything just keeps giving me coins, and I keep getting more cards. And I'm so addicted to it. And I even got my wife involved, who knows nothing about wrestling. And she's like, oh, well, I'm just going to help you out. I'll go get some cards and I can trade for stuff that you want. And then you can get me stuff. Now she's hooked on Becky Lynch. Like, that's her girl. She has to have Becky Lynch stuff. Oh, I know.
Too.
And so she's out there trading, like, well, I'm not going to give you this card because I need it for a trade to get my Becky Lynch Kiss card that I want.
Oh God.
So
I probably have a number of them. She can probably have one.
She's so just involved in it now too. So like every single day I'm getting like, you have a trade request. I go, oh, of course it's from her. I can see it's from her. That's great. But I'm addicted to it. And I wanted to just share with you about my experience with it. And then you're still using it though too, right?
Yeah.
But you're not using it like in an everyday, like you're on it. Like how much time per week do you think you spend on Top Slam?
Very, very little time. I think the reason, it used to be the way that the app was structured, like it behooved you to be on the app constantly and trading and doing all of these things. I think that they've shifted away from the things that made the original sort of users of the apps engage with it constantly. And right now, with the introduction of the secondary currency and all the other stuff about it, 3 or 4 years ago, no, it couldn't have been that long, maybe 2 years ago, when they started doing that, it just became easy to get exactly what you wanted. So you just literally have to hop on whenever they release something and spend your money, and that's pretty much it. Like,
so
I don't really.
How is it, like, for instance, someone like me, who I'm still learning, I've only been using it for maybe a couple months now at tops.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
And I can never get these iconic or legendary type level of cards because they sell out so quickly. How is it people get them so fast?
Well, most of them don't sell out fast. Like there's a very small percentage of limited cards that are released in the app. It used to be, and this is what I think one of the other things that drives me absolutely insane, is that it used to be that every card was limited. And it wasn't limited by time, it was limited by card count. So like they said, hey, this card is being released in this set, and the first 25 people to pull it or acquire it, that it's sold out.
That's what they still do, and I can never get those cards.
Hold on a second, kind of. So when they started switching to the new format of the app, they instead decided that they were going to limit a lot of cards by time and pack mechanics rather than card count. Now, there are some cards in every set that still have a limit on them, but it's very, very rare that an entire set is limited. Like in that, and like, I'll give you an example. So like Topps Inception is the most widely collected set across all of Topps' digital apps. I don't know why that's the case, but for whatever reason, it is their blockbuster set that they release in every product.
I liked it.
Or in every app, yeah.
It.
And it's my favorite too. And I remember I was actually part of the crowd that really got into it the first time around when they released it on Topps Huddle in like 2014 or whatever. But I will say, like, I remember the first edition of the physical cards came out in football in 2011. And I remember how revolutionary that set was. So to bring it into the digital space where it's kind of lived on in all of these different brands that Topps has lost the physical license for, it's become like this really important set. Well, 2 years ago when they released it in wrestling, everything was limited. I mean, really limited, like 20 copies for like the most important cards. There were one-of-ones. There was a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow, one-of-ones.
Yeah, I mean, like it was ridiculous. And in baseball and football, there was actually even more limited content. But for whatever reason, they've really shied away in these sort of third-tier apps from releasing truly exciting limited content. Now, this year in Inception, instead of limit things by card count, they limited by time, and it's just not the same. It's not the same chase. And I remember, when they first announced that they were doing Top Slam, like the first months of the app, they really didn't do anything limited at all, and they were just trying to get people indoctrinated, kind of like you are, right? They wanted to get people hooked. But over time, they started going into like the same patterns that they did for every one of the other Topps apps. Now, I explained on the other conversation that we had that Topps had a huge problem with Star Wars. Huge problem with Star Wars. It went from the golden goose to basically tearing apart their entire fabric of their digital app sort of landscape. And they've really, and the reason that Star Wars fell apart was because they released way too much pay-for-play content. Now, what happened was the entire community just became entirely too toxic. And instead of saying, we'll be more balanced in the way that we release everything, they literally just swung it all the way back to being the way that. I remember talking
about that. I do remember that.
So they've kind of done that. They've kind of brought it back to a balance in a lot of the main apps that they run, like Bunt and Disney and a few other things. But with WWE, there was just nothing. And you saw this release of Inception that happened probably a month ago at this point for the year. It just wasn't like the cards looked tremendous, but they weren't the same because the chase wasn't there anymore. They were limited. So you say, how do I get these cards? Well, there is one answer and you're not going to like it. And it's pay money, a lot of money.
For me and my limited knowledge of it is the way you get better odds of getting your stuff is by using the diamonds as opposed to the coins.
So it's even more than that. It's not about odds. No, it's not about odds. It's about access. So you can't actually access those tiers of cards unless you spend money. So the most recent release was Bowman's Best, I think.
Yeah, Series 2, yeah.
Yeah. So you can't even get the best cards unless you spend the secondary currency. You can't get the secondary currency unless you spend money. So, I mean, there are limited quests sometimes that they give you like a very small amount of these diamonds that you need to buy the packs. But unless you're going to spend $100, like you're not pulling anything of worth. And unless you get really lucky. Now, I've done that before where you literally spend $1 and you buy one pack and you get the best card you can pull. Yeah. And then you can trade it for just for new users like who manage to stumble upon these really valuable legendary cards. I always tell them it's better to trade down for a lot of cards you can use to get other stuff rather than keeping this one mega piece that everybody wants.
Yeah.
So for me, I've gone from I have to have everything of Stone Cold Steve Austin and the guys that Ultimate Warrior, like the guys that I loved as a kid, to now it's become such a grind that I literally just said if it doesn't have Becky Lynch on it, I don't buy it. and I started collecting some of the Rhea Ripley stuff because I really love her too, but it was Becky Lynch and I was just like, it just got to be such a grind, so I'm not really on the app as much anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that like that new one you're talking about, like the newest one that came out that I started getting into again was the Bowman's Best Series 2. And I think they had a level that was only numbered to 25. Like there's only 25 of like some kind of a gold version of it.
Yeah, so they release sets on a pretty regular basis now too, which I think has taken a lot of the fun out of it as well. It used to be sets were dropping at crazy times. Like you never knew when the next stuff was going to drop. Now it's like Wednesdays and Saturday or Sunday, you around 1 o'clock, that a new set is going to drop or a series 2 of an existing set. So as long as you're on during those times or you keep an eye on your notifications and you haven't turned on, you should be able to get access to them if you're willing to spend the money. Most people just say, well, I'm either going to go on eBay and buy it or I'm just going to try and trade for it. or I'm just not going to even care enough to collect it.
That's the level I haven't gotten to yet, which is like the eBay side of it and how people can sell this stuff on eBay.
Yeah, we talked about that before. It's not really allowed, but
I know
they have to. And it's actually probably the best way to acquire cards, hands down, not even a question. Like, if you really want to make the most of your money, just go buy whatever you want on eBay. Like, I'm serious. Like, it furthers a negative part of the market, but if you have limited funds and you just don't want to participate at that level and you just want to get what you want and not have to worry about ripping through packs at $100 a piece, like, just go buy it on eBay.
Yeah, I just gather up. I maintain a level of 400,000 coins at all times. And then I just, if I get to 500,000, I'll go, oh, new release came out. I'll buy 100,000 coins worth of packs. And that's about it.
Yeah, there's really nothing of value that you can spend coins on and get. Like, coins for like the top, like, there's a definite divide between the people who spend money and the people who don't. And so there, like, anybody who spends money doesn't care about any of the cards they can get with coins. Like, coins are absolutely worthless to anybody who spends a regular amount of money. And that's really what has become a huge detriment to the app. It's like, there is literally nothing available that you can get that with coins that is of any value. You have to spend money to get stuff that's worth anything in the app economy.
That seems a little shitty, actually. Like,
yeah,
I think wouldn't it be better to have an equal playing field as a collector? So you have to go out there and say, you know what, we all have the same odds.
Well,
we can all
hold on. There's two schools of thought on that. The school of thought is, if I'm going to spend money, I want stuff that normal collectors who are just free to play can't get. Like, I don't want to spend the money and be getting things that are of absolute zero value because everybody has access to them. I also don't want somebody to rip their one pack when they get a new user and pull some crazy one-on-one that now is gone because they don't understand how to trade for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there's that side of it. And there's the other side, is like, how do we entice players to stay on the app and trade and do the things that need to be done? And it's such a fine line to walk, which is why things like the NFT boom has really changed so much of this to a degree that is almost immeasurable.
Which is what I want to lead into now, is about trying to incorporate this into some sort of NFT.
Well, and again, it's an ultra complicated issue because of licensing. And Topps actually released NFT baseball. So baseball cards in NFT format.
Yeah.
But the problem was that it became a very complicated economy. And it also is backed with a currency that was involved in the crypto crash. So like I got in at like $100. My investment went from $100 to $3,500, and then back down to like $1,700 before I sold it. Like, now it's at what I spent. It was probably, now it's at like $500. So I sold it at a really, on the downward slope. I should have sold it at $3,500, right? Yeah. And like, so Topps has experience in releasing NFT trading card products. The problem is the licensing that's involved with that is kind of a frontier that they haven't explored yet. Like, because NFT has come on board in between the signing of these new licensing deals, like, there's a lot of gray area that they have to negotiate, or they're just hoping that they can release, and once it's out there, they can't pull it back. NFTs are different than the Topps apps because the ownership receipt becomes the item. And in the Topps apps, Topps still owns everything. So it's like this encompassed little world that they can literally pull the plug on at any time that they want. Mm-hmm. NFTs are completely different because you're basically transferring ownership of this collectible to the person that bought it. Well, the receipt of that collectible being the NFT. So like, there's a whole different aspect to it. And personally, I think the NFTs are what the Topps app should have originally become. But because of licensing and because of really sheer creativity, it never happened. And now it's like transferring it into those realms. Like, Panini is releasing Prism basketball in NFT format, I think tomorrow, or has tried at least once. So the NFT market is where the Topps digital apps should have gone 3-4 years ago. But because they didn't, now they're in this limbo where people are like, well, I don't have any ownership over these collectibles. Why would I buy this versus buying the Undertaker collectible that WWE released around WrestleMania? Like, that is the type of thing, like Bret Hart just released NFTs.
So John Cornette did too. Jim Cornette did too.
Cornette did his too, like, because it's literally printing money.
Yeah, that comes out this weekend, as a matter of fact, tomorrow.
Yeah, I heard about it on his podcast. Yeah. So like those types of things are almost making the Topps apps seem obsolete in a lot of ways, because there's no ownership involved. It's literally just for entertainment purposes. Mm-hmm. Where NFTs are digital collectibles that exist in ownership space, where the Topps apps just have none of that. It's all owned by Topps, encompassed in their own little world.
So now it just focuses on pretty much being a game. Is pretty much all it is now, really.
Yeah, it's like buying Madden football and playing Madden Ultimate Team. Like, you're literally playing a game. And we were talking about Supercard before we started recording. That's what Supercard is.
Yeah.
Like, WWE Supercard is a game that people pay a lot of money for, but to exist within the game and have advantages within the game. But it's a game. Like, there's an entertainment value in playing along with it, where the Topps apps is seriously just collecting. And it's really weird, because for a long time the baseball and the football apps had, I think they do for hockey too, I'm not sure though, I haven't played the hockey one yet, but they incorporated fantasy sports into baseball and football, and they could have done that with the Topps apps. And I actually told the team probably, I want to say 5 years ago or 4 years ago at this time, like when we all got together and were meeting about stuff, I said, like, you should do a NASCAR app, and for the NASCAR app you should have people collect pieces of cars and race their cars. Like, basically take a like you buy packs of cards, and you buy in the packs of cards, you get a chassis, and you get tires, and you get this, and you customize your car with a paint job or with this, and you can build cars to race alongside other collectors. And they were just like, no, that's too complicated, we can't build stuff like that. And I'm just like, well, can't you? Like, so I was like, there's ideas like that for wrestlers too. Like, the whole attraction of WWE 2K, whatever, is the create a wrestler, right? Is you can create your own wrestler. So why aren't you offering opportunities to do stuff like that, where you can customize things? And it all comes down to licensing and capabilities and resources and time. And they've really sort of, that's where I think that, as I mentioned, I think a little bit in the last conversation, where they really sort of deviated from the whole really true potential of this app, is creating content that is unavailable anywhere else. And it's really just sort of like, well, this app looks the same as it did in 2014, and the functionality is basically the same. The pack formats are pretty much the same. The only thing that's different is added currency, and that's just not an innovation. So then what is the point of sticking around, right? So that's where the problems exist. That's the challenges of keeping users on board.
And they must be, I mean, do you know the numbers? Is the app doing well? Has it gone up in numbers? Has it gone down in numbers?
I used to have a lot more of a finger on the pulse there. And from what I understand, the Topps apps had a record year in 2020, to which my response was, you better have had a record year in 2020. Everybody had a record year. I think, and what I was saying on Twitter was, like, they have potential to really draw people in by releasing products that within the apps that are above and beyond just the normal releases you see in every Topps app, whether that's in Bunt or other things, importing those over to the other apps, or, working with WWE to license more aspects of their experience so that you can incorporate that into the fabric of the apps. But that takes time and resources, which I don't know if Topps is willing to dedicate at this point, knowing that they've really just poured all this money into releasing NFTs, and then MLB goes signs more NFT deals with Candy app or whatever. I can't remember what it was called. So, like, everything is kind of like changing, and there's like, well, we came off a record year. I was like, well, how much money did you leave on the table because you didn't do any of these other things? And the answer is probably a considerable amount. Like, when you look at the value of some of these other mobile apps who saw just 300-400% increase in profit, you look at Topps investor profile, and this is where the NFT release shined a light on digital that has never been shown before. You can go on Topps' website for the Muds acquisition, and they literally broke it down segment by segment. So you can see the projected totals for digital for 2020, 2021, and 2022. I think even to 2023 they had on there, where they said that a couple of years ago, the digital division made like $10 million. This past 2019, it was like $25 million. And then the projected, and then 2020 was like $34 million with a projection for 2021 at like $51 million or something like that. So it's like increasing pretty substantially.
Mm-hmm.
But how much of that was driven by the projected growth this year was driven probably by their NFT baseball release, among other things that they did with NFTs. And because Topps really did a lot with like Godzilla, I think was one of them. They did a few different things. So they've invested in the NFT market already. It just hasn't come to WWE yet. And I think as long as that's, you know, part of their investment profile, we would like to believe it's only a matter of time, but at what cost? Does that mean that the investment in the digital apps is subsiding? I don't know. They weren't really clear about that. But I think they've gone from potentials in the hundreds of millions of dollars to where they were in 2019, which was like a $10 million, $20 million division. Still pretty substantial when you think of the card market and where they came from. But when Star Wars was getting national news coverage and they literally just screwed that pooch as best you possibly can screw it, that is just a terrible situation. And it's unfortunate because I think it was like the work of like seeing and counting on the wrong statistics and overestimating the willingness of your buying public to participate in your app the way that they did.
That's incredible. And almost seems like they even took this last year and they left so much money on the table for investments for future growth, because they could have just taken like, all right, maybe we slow down our growth in this digital right now while we try to correct our wrongs, and then bring it into 2022 and to 2023 where we can actually really plan ourselves for the future.
Yeah. And again, I think it comes down to the vague space that NFTs exist in, because if I'm sitting in the Topps chair, and I'm not, but if I was, and I'm interacting with my licensors, I'm saying, how quickly can I get into the NFT market and exploit that as much as I possibly can? I don't care about anything else. Like literally nothing else on my plate matters as much as clarifying that language. So any other expose I have into growth within my apps is put on the back burner until I can find out. Well,
it stays in the back burner anyways, because it's already been proven to work.
To an extent,
but to an extent. Yeah. I mean, there can be fixes.
You're still dedicating artists to the app on a regular basis because they have to build the content. You're looking at the producers that actually run the applications and deliver the content, set up timers to release everything, and, you know, reporting and forecasting on the growth and the production within the apps. Like all of that resource should immediately, and like, because Topps is in a boom period unlike anything that they have ever seen in the history of their company, even bigger than the 90s. So there is no pressure right now. There shouldn't be any pressure. That doesn't mean there isn't, but there shouldn't be any pressure on the digital division to do anything other than develop NFTs. Like that, like, and I know that that's a tough thing for me to or an easy thing for me to say, because there's expectations across every business to deliver, to meet the expectations set from previous years. But if I'm Topps, like, and you've gone from, I think their growth, they had in this presentation, this investor presentation, the growth of their business over the last 2 years. Like you see that they've gone from a $150 million business to a $350 million business, or whatever it was. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I remember looking at it. Like there should be zero pressure on digital to deliver anything but NFTs. There's nothing out there that is as valuable right now as NFTs in the digital world. So why dedicate it to anything else?
It's very true. Very true. Like I'd be more financially involved and interested if there was an NFT aspect to it, because, you know, I did buy into the Undertaker stuff because I thought it was such a cool thing as a collector. So, you know, now getting into the top slams like that, you know, my mind's thinking like, how can we convert this into something that I could actually spend money on besides buying coins and diamonds, you know, where I can actually physically, tangibly own a receipt of something, you know, would be kind of nice.
Well, here's an aspect of the apps that very few people ever considered. Have you seen an advertisement anywhere on the app?
No, zero,
right?
Zero.
There's no advertisement. Have you seen any other money-making apparatus other than the diamond purchases? None. There's zero. It doesn't exist.
Other than the diamond purchases, I guess you can kind of in a vague way, you know, use where I can watch things, to earn more coins. So there's some ad
Right.
aspects
I'm
there.
saying from a user perspective, like there is no way to garner money for me if it's not engaging with the app on a constant
Correct.
basis, right?
Yeah, I have to search for that.
Right. So I have to go watch videos. I have to participate in the app to generate money for Tops. There is no other advertisements available where they can make money on me if I'm just there, right?
Correct.
I have to engage. So every part of their app is designed to get you to engage. That's why they send you all the notifications. That's why they do the releases the way that they do them. Like it's to get you back into the app because they know they won't make any money off of you unless you're engaging. And so that piece of it disappears with NFTs, right? It is a singular purchase. And then the economy becomes, I believe there's fractional ownership
Correct.
by Tops to pull money out of each transaction that happens on like Atomic Hub or the other places that do the trading of NFTs for cryptocurrency. So I think there is a very small percentage of money that they make for the NFTs changing hands. I'm not entirely sure, but that's just my own lack of familiarity. So let's say, for example, if I release a set of NFT baseball as they did, the only money I'm making is the initial pack sale and then fractional ownership of trades that happen down the road. I think that completely turns the entire app infrastructure on its head because there's no longer any real customer buying power unless you're constantly releasing more stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Very true.
But it doesn't matter because the NFTs are inherently 10 times to 15 times as valuable as anything Tops could release on any of these apps.
Well, on the other side then is to make things tangible to a customer. How can they take an app like that and make some sort of version of that app where I can incorporate my on-demand stuff?
Well, they've dabbled in that in the past. But again, it all comes down, I think, and again, I'm speculating here because I don't have the licensing agreements in front of me, but they've dabbled in it in the past, and I'll get to that in a second. I don't think that there is a way or a desire to incorporate physical elements anymore into the apps. And the reason is because the teams of the physical and the digital are completely separate at Tops.
I remember we talked about that, and they a lot of times don't even talk to each other.
Right. So that's the first thing. Oh yeah, I remember we talked about that. The second thing is I don't know what the licensing allows them to do in transferring between physical and digital. There may not be any restrictions. It may just all be interdepartmental, but they dabbled in that in the past where they've released a physical trading card product that feeds into the app directly. And it just didn't they thought, I think that there was like a kind of a shared understanding that physical collectors would become interested in the digital and the digital collectors would become increasingly interested in the physical. And what ended up happening was none of that. Like it just kind of bombed. And it just created a headache of programming cards that could be redeemed and delivered into the app via redemption code or whatever. So you would like to think that the technology has evolved over the last 5 years that stuff like that could happen again, but it would require a marriage of an app. Like, again, I don't know how much Tops is willing to say, we're going to invest any sort of innovation money into these apps anymore because we know that the future is all NFT. Even if NFT goes to a point where it's no longer valuable because cryptocurrency crashes even further than it has already, like it's still inherently more valuable than a secondary ownership of a digital collectible you'll never have any real proof of ownership for. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much innovation is ever going to come to the Tops apps again, other than minor cosmetic enhancements and new sets and stuff like that.
Sure. So, yeah. I mean, I would love the opportunity to purchase and say, hey, I would buy, even if it's a facsimile autograph version, I would love to buy, a version of that. It would be kind of nice,
Well, that is that's a whole different beast altogether.
What I'm saying is, I could buy that, like a secondary thing. I could buy that now if I wanted to physically buy it.
So that's never going to happen.
It's an on-demand service.
Yeah, it's never that type of stuff has been the criticism of digital cards since day one, and it will never happen. The way that it will happen is, I thought the Tops Now stuff would be a great place to start the crossover again between digital and physical, or something like you can buy through their store the way that they sell on-demand stuff, but you can get it in the app and through their on-demand store delivered to your house. Creating cards like you saw, like you just showed with the Inception cards, like I said, this is a place to gain inspiration for physical products. The challenge on the physical side is like threefold. One is the resources it takes to make cards like that.
Correct.
In baseball, where Inception still runs every single year, you are getting direct relic content from the leagues to Topps, or there is such a huge contingent of collectors that go out there and buy game used material that you have a treasure trove any day of the week that you can access through your collector market, where you have photo matched, insanely authentic, league sponsored sometimes or whatever content to put in cards like that. So that's the first thing. WWE doesn't have any of that. And that's why I love, like, if you look at Fully Loaded, which was a set released in early 22, or I think
it's a beautiful set.
Yeah, it's the first time we've ever had really unique relics. Well, that stuff doesn't exist unless it comes from WWE. And like, if you look at the gear relic cards in Fully Loaded, it's the first time we've had anything like that ever offered in a WWE set, or it's been at least 5 to 10 years since
well, for a Topps release product, because Flair used to do quite a bit of stuff back in the day.
Fair.
Yeah.
But so it's been a long time since Flair has produced WWE cards.
Almost 20 years.
So if you look at the Inception set in the digital realm, let's just say, for example, that they're going to do the minimum amount of work it would be required to get enough relic content to create cards like that. You would either have to insert matte relics, which WWE provides from a number of their events to Topps, as we've seen, or you're having single color shirt relics, some of the tables, ladders, and chairs and stuff like that they put in Fully Loaded. Like, that's the type of content that they would have to put in those cards. What collectors are accustomed to is the logo patches and the stuff that comes from the baseball side, which are beautiful cards, and they're produced in a very formulaic way that doesn't lend itself to a WWE timeline the same way. So if you think of like WWE products in digital, you can create them at the snap of a finger, because you literally just cut out what you want, you put it in there, and it's there. Well, for regular cards, it's a 9 to 12 month production timeline on every card. So if I want to get a relic and cut it up, you have to obtain the relic. You have to get that relic approved by the WWE. So you can't just throw a relic in a card without talking to WWE first.
Everything goes through WWE.
It's where good ideas will go to die. So it's true, because they are historically known as one of the toughest licensors to work with when using their trademark creative material, or what do they call it?
Intellectual property.
Intellectual property. So their IP is notoriously difficult to get approved for use in stuff like this. So Topps has to then obtain the relic, get it approved, which can take time. Then they have to cut it up. They have to get those pieces to the production facility to insert into the cards, or they do that at the same facility, and that takes time. Then you have to get all the autographs done, which are usually done at either one of the main 4 events, like Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, stuff, or they're sending it to a wrestler's house, which can be kind of a crapshoot depending on how likely they are to be there. During the pandemic, it's probably easy because they were all home. But when you're on the road, doing house shows every week, that's a completely different story, right?
Yes.
Historically, wrestlers have been on the road 300 days a week, or a year, I mean. So how do you get signatures done if you're not going to an event and getting them done, or having an event in New York where Topps is, where they can do those signings, which usually happens about once a year? So the production timelines are vastly different because Topps doesn't have the resources or the cooperation from the WWE to go out and get these autographs the same way that they would for MLB, where they can go to spring training. They can have on-demand access to athletes because they also have a license for the Major League Baseball Players Association, who will crack the whip if people don't sign their cards. That doesn't exist in WWE, and the superstars are busy all the time. They have lives too. Like, if they have one day off a week, what are the chances that they want to go and spend that day off signing cards? Like, they don't. Now, during the pandemic, all of that was different, but now that they're going back on the road, who knows? So
So, but even you don't have to even talk about autographs or relic cards. Why can't I have a regular card that I pick up through the app on an on-demand service? If I want to just get this AJ Styles card from Victory. It's not anything special. I just like the design.
Because right now there is, and I posted this on my blog a couple of days ago, there are finite resources available to print and manufacture trading cards right now.
And I did read that. It's a good article.
Yeah, like there's only a very small amount of printing resources available for any trading card company to use. And right now, running a press means running cash through a printing press. Like that's how crazy trading cards are right now. So everything is at capacity. Now let's go back 2 years ago when that wasn't the case. Then it becomes about coordination and cooperation between the two departments, which historically doesn't seem to have happened very well. And, you know, who knows what the limitations were, why those cards, you know, the art teams are different too. So the art teams that design the physical products versus the art teams that design the other products are completely different. Topps has to get all of their physical designs approved by WWE likely. So to add on all of the other ones that go with the digital stuff too, just adds, you know, gums up the works, right?
Yeah. But if this is already an approved, artwork design, it's just not approved.
It's not. Oh. I don't know. We don't know if like an approved.
I cannot imagine even through the digital stuff that they're just kind of going out the back door and WA has no idea about this. I would be surprised.
But I don't know. We don't know. Like those are the questions that I think we don't have access to the answers. Like that, it could be like that. It may not be, and that's why I think trading card production is probably, from the hobby aspect, one of the more complicated things that collectors just have zero familiarity with and really don't make an effort to understand either. Like there's business to this too. So like, let's say, and again, this is the real sort of driving factor is 2 years ago when there wasn't a trading card boom, if I had offered that AJ Styles physical trading card to be purchased through the app and somebody says, and there are 15 people, let's say, yes, I want that card. Let's say that there are 15 people, but let's say it's 15 people. Trading cards have to be mass produced for them to be profitable.
Correct.
So why am I mass producing cards at a 15 level and literally throwing money out the window just to make some guy in an app happy who would have bought that card regardless? Like they don't really gain additional sort of revenue because the cost of printing those cards will outweigh the cost of just not doing, of the opportunity cost of just not doing it.
Well, there are other logistics to that as well. It's like that. I mean, I knew when I was really in bed with Comic Images days, like that. So all the aspects of having to work with a company like WWE, working with an editor from both sides of the plates like that.
Exactly.
You know, all these different things.
Takes time.
But it takes time, absolutely takes time. And the majority of a person's investment is actually on the base set as opposed to all the other, you know, autograph cards like that. Those are the easier parts. It was the base that became the
well, maybe back then. Back then, now it's the like.
Well, it's a matter of like airbrushing out Levi's off a pair of pants or taking a Coke can out of a picture. That has to all be done.
Well, that's for certain sets. There's split 50-50 between using the official WWE renders where none of that has to be ever accomplished. Like I design my own trading cards really easily. Yeah. Like I have, like I was like, just to see if I could do it. Right. I've been trying to design my own trading cards. All you have to do is go into the WWE render database, pull out the render you want of the wrestler you want to use for your card. And it's literally like pre-cut for you. Like everything is that you don't have to edit it at all. When you start using
made our first card.
Yeah, right. So when you do that versus the 50% of the sets that are using actual event images, then there's retouching that has to happen. But the technology that's available right now to do that is really, really easy. Yeah. And to the point where they're airbrushing uniforms onto NFL and MLB players every day because there wasn't a rookie premiere or stuff like that. That's a whole different story. Yeah. But I'm saying that aspect of it isn't as hard as it used to be. What is really hard right now in trading card production is actually getting the cards printed, then getting them signed, and then getting them into packs. So getting them into packs seems to be a very big challenge because I think that there's a very small amount of machined resources available to deliver a packed out trading card. Like I had heard a story, and I can't remember if this was for printing or for pack outs, but I think it was for pack outs. There was like only a very small amount of the machines that are capable of delivering a mass produced trading card product. and one guy has one, but it's like being held a hostage in his garage or something like that, and he won't sell it. Like people have offered him like millions of dollars for this thing. It's like this big, you know, in a warehouse, like it's like this thing that it's a looper, which basically you put stacks of trading cards into like this machine, and it shoots them on a schedule into a pack format, and then there's a wrapper that goes around it, right?
I'd actually seen that had play out in Upper Deck when Upper Deck used to be in Southern California, in Yorba Linda, California. I got a nice little view of watching that assembly line work.
Right. So if there's only a certain amount of those machines out there, and I can't remember, you know, again, it's a finite resource. We saw that impact trading card releases across the entire calendar. So it's weird. It's a weird situation right now because everything is so hot.
It's crazy. Yeah. I think there's even less of those machines to pack things out than there are actual printers, if I'm not mistaken. I'm assuming.
Yes, I think that's the case. It's a weird business to be a part of, because like it's all about the mass production. I think the mass production is the drawback in a lot of these areas. And WWE is probably the smallest license in that respect of all of their stuff. So it gets the lowest priority, which means the digital apps, if you wanted to print those trading cards, would be even further down that list than anything else. I mean, it doesn't make business sense to offer that, especially when customers are already engaging with the apps in previous years at the $10 million clip. Like that's crazy that it's gotten that far. So I think overall, like it's this industry has gotten absolutely insane, and I don't think it's going to get any less crazy anytime soon.
What do you want to see happen with this app going forward?
Honestly, I've already said, like, if it doesn't go NFT, then it's going to be obsolete more quickly than I think they ever could have imagined. Like there has to be, but because WWE is releasing their own NFTs, because everybody is there really enough appeal to dedicate that kind of money? And I think we saw them release, as I said, the first series of baseball. There hasn't been a series 2. So like either they didn't see enough to invest in it, or it takes so long to mine the resources to use it that it's just not feasible to deliver for a trading card product that is forced down on your priority list. So, I mean, I would love to see them completely change the entire face of the app. It's not going to happen. I just don't see the investment being made personally. That's my opinion. Yeah. That's my opinion. I should state that. I don't have any inside knowledge anymore. So
yeah, I'm addicted to what it is right now, but the other side of me would
definitely
love to see
addicting.
Yeah, the other side of me would love to see it somehow form itself into something that can be tangible, like the best of both worlds. Even if it's not a physical card, but having a receipt of something that I could own would be really nice.
Well, yeah, that's an NFT. That's exactly what an NFT is.
It's exactly what it is. That's why I bought into the Undertaker one. I'm not jumping in the Cornette one or the Bret Hart ones like that. But I mean, what's to say these guys who are no longer under contract with WWE or any major company can't just start creating their own damn NFTs? You know?
Well, they can. I mean, like that's like the NFT access is there's barriers to entry in the fact that you have to have the resources to create the digital blockchain entries, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't just say, here's my NFT, go buy it. Like you actually have to have the resources behind them to attach the currency and attach the receipt so that you can transfer ownership. That takes mining resources and computer resources, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'm not an expert on this, so please don't think like I'm talking anything out of my ass.
100% makes sense. I mean, from a designer
you
standpoint.
Can't just say I'm making an NFT and not have.
And here's my PayPal address.
Right, exactly. Here's my PayPal. Send it to me. Well, actually, I think that's exactly what MJF did. But I think
you're right.
But I think like with the Cornette thing, like I was listening to his podcast and I can't remember like how he got to the stage of the NFT that he did, but I know that there was stuff behind it that he had to do to make that happen. You have to work with a company to provide a marketplace for it, or you won't be able to trade it in a way that makes it valuable. Mm-hmm. So I think if you have a guy like Braun Strowman, who seems to have been paid a considerable amount of money to be a part of WWE and maybe has the funds to do something like that, I'm sure he does. Mm-hmm. But he can't use any of the licensed WWE stuff to produce that. No. So that takes away a lot of the collectability of a lot of these things. But it's kind of a weird marketplace in that respect, and that it's open to everybody, but there are barriers to entry that prevent people from just hauling off and creating whatever they want.
Sure, especially from people who are known for something that was licensed by
Yeah,
someone else.
Yeah, somebody asked me Sasha Banks is getting a Star Wars figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're making a Star Wars figure of her Costco Reeves or whatever, however you say it, her Mandalorian character that she's getting an action figure.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody asked me, like, is this going to be valuable to have it signed as Sasha Banks or have it signed as, her character or Mercedes Renato? Like, how do you value this? And I'm like, that's like the most loaded question that there is, because now you're crossing two fan bases. And if you sign it with one, then the other one won't buy it. And like, if you sign it with a real name, will either of them buy it? Like, it's like the value is in the character, which is why I laugh when everybody says, like, well, they should be able to own this. And it's like, WWE created these characters. Like, they created the characters, they created the personas, they created the names. The only thing they didn't create was the moves that they used to make that character come to life. So that's where the wrestlers have a lot of the arguments to say, I own this part of it. But the creative IP is all in the branding, which is what makes those things valuable. If you take that away, they're not valuable anymore.
Correct. There was an article recently about supposedly WWE's telling that talent can't sign under their gimmick names anymore at conventions.
Good luck enforcing that.
How do you police that? I mean,
you can't.
You just can't.
It's just putting that out there. So if there ever is a major situation where they would have to call that into question, it's there that they have documentation saying we've told them they can't do this. Mm-hmm. So like, if somebody goes and just does this massive signing and for some reason there's legality in question coming out of that, they want to have that documentation to CYA. Yeah. But other than that, they're not going to be able to enforce it. And they all know that. Like, it's just literally, it's not part of it. But when you look at the community, the only value in any of these things, whether it's a digital collectible or a physical collectible, is in the branding of the character that they play. Yes. So if you take that away, it's not valuable anymore. Like, no one wants to to buy a Terry Bollea anything. Like, they want to buy Hulk Hogan, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing. Like, it's the character is the value. And like, no one wants to buy like a robe that says Richard Fleur on the back. Like, they want to buy Ric Flair.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's where I think that this is such a unique marketplace, in the fact that WWE has created a world where these characters exist as real life people, and people tie their value of their collectibles to those characters, not the people that play them.
Correct. It's a whole different way. It's a really different world, as opposed to like going to a convention and I get Robert England to sign something as Robert England and Freddy Krueger.
Like, Tom Hanks can sign a Forrest Gump poster as Tom Hanks, and it's still valuable. Correct. Because he's Tom Hanks and he's valuable as a person. Forrest Gump is also valuable as a character, but if he signed that Forrest Gump, people would be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
So like, that's where it just becomes
it's all written
crazy.
With a backwards R.
Like, if Robert Downey Jr. went and signed an Iron Man poster to Adam Iron Man, like, no
Tony
one would
Stark.
know. Like, would you go to Disney World and have the guy in an Iron Man suit sign this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But if I have a poster and it's signed by Alexa Bliss as Alexa Bliss, then that's what makes it valuable. It's not that, I don't even know her real name, but
Lexi
Hoffman. Yeah, that's it. So like, that's the type of thing that makes this such a unique opportunity for so many collectors, that they don't know anything about anything unless it's signed as the character, which creates even more problems when you're trying to build NFTs off of this, because from a digital perspective, you can literally build whatever the hell you want. Like, you can build like a Larry Steve pig NFT for Alexa Bliss. I know because he just died. Like, she could do a fundraiser for her pig by releasing Larry Steve NFTs, and people would buy the shit out of those things.
Yeah.
So like, that's what I'm saying is like, it's like, if you want to know where the future of these digital collectibles are, it's all within the licensing of the individual organizations that have the IP that's worth collecting. And that's what I think Topps is swimming in a sea of uncertainty around. So
I'm just wondering what it's going to take for them to kind of, wrap their head around this and kind of go, this is the direction we want to go. I mean, what's going to?
It's a great question.
I wonder what it's going to take to get them to realize that this is going to be their future, and, and they need to jump on it. Like they spent this
I
whole
don't know.
last year absorbing record sales, and they have people at home. You know, they could have just doing a whole bunch of stuff in-house to prepare themselves for a post-pandemic.
Well, you know, it's a great question. And my response to that is just do it. Like, I don't know why they don't just dedicate the time to do those things. Maybe they are, and we haven't seen the fruits of those labors yet, but
it's possible.
Like, yeah, I mean, they could, like, if we think of production timelines for trading card products at 9 to 12 months, like the NFT boom is not, I don't think it's 9 to 12 months old. No. I mean, when did Top Shot really take hold? It was probably mid 2020, right?
Somewhere around there.
So we're coming up on 12 months. So like, and they've already released baseball. So they're on track in terms of those production timelines. But the attractiveness for digital is that it's instant. So you should be able to have resources on standby to attach NFTs to collectibles on a regular basis. This should be a weekly thing where every week they are releasing more and more NFTs into the Topps marketplace to create an economy around the NFTs that they have. It shouldn't just be one set and done, which is why a lot of people bought into the original Topps baseball release, was because they thought there would be like definitive collection.
It's going to be like an ongoing series.
Right. But that hasn't happened yet. Yeah. Maybe it will, but we don't know that yet. And there hasn't been any communication. They hired somebody to run, his name is Kurside or something like that. I can't remember how you say his name, but it's something like that. And he's on Twitter, and like people are asking him questions and doing this, but there's zero information that has become available that showcases what their future plans are for this. Meanwhile, MLB is signing NFT deals with other people that seem to be exclusive. We don't know how that impacts their trading cards. Like WWE is releasing their own NFTs. They've only done it once, but to think they won't do it again, how does that impact things? Like,
I wouldn't be surprised that it becomes an annual WrestleMania type of thing.
Right, it should. Well, SummerSlam is coming up, and that's supposed to be on a WrestleMania level this year.
Sure.
So, does that mean that because we already know that the Transcendent party is going to happen at WrestleMania. So, like, even Topps is investing in SummerSlam like a WrestleMania would be. Mm-hmm. So, does that mean that we're going to start to see more releases from Topps or investments from Topps into a SummerSlam type event? No idea. Similarly, like, does this also mean that Topps doesn't have the ability to release NFTs because WWE told them no? I mean, like, those are the types of things where the licensing contracts were signed years ago. So the NFTs weren't a consideration at that point. So is this a gray area that they can't navigate because the licensing contracts haven't come into existence that showcase that? Now, Panini somehow and Topps somehow have released each one set of cards. How that has resonated with the licensors themselves is, I think, not public knowledge. So we don't know how MLB reacted to it. Maybe they discouraged them from diving into Star Wars type NFTs, because that would be my next logical step, would be to expect that they're going to go with a Star Wars NFT.
That would be huge, I think. It has the potential to be huge. That market of fandom there is it's worldwide. So why wouldn't it be?
But again, it comes back to, do those collectors value trading cards for Star Wars? I haven't been following the Star Wars cards. I assume like certain parts of that industry, just like certain parts of WWE, have exploded. But is it enough that those people will transfer that value into an NFT release? I don't know. Like, I think that's yet to be seen, and it's expensive to do it, right? So you get a lot of money back only if it's successful, but you've poured a ton of money into it to make it, what it is. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah.
And I think for WWE, the audience is probably a fraction of that. From a trading card perspective for WWE collectors, it's like so far down the totem pole. Do you want to take that risk of investing all that money and getting nothing out of it if the collectors don't latch on, right?
That's true. What a weird and crazy dynamic all that stuff is to try to figure out. And thank God I'm not the one being paid to do that.
Right. Well, I'm one of the moderators on one of the larger Facebook WWE groups, and like the constant discussion is around those things. Like, why aren't they doing this? Why don't they do this? Why don't they do this? And I'm just like, why would you? Like, those are huge financial risks for a trading card niche product that you release maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Like I wish, like, that's why Transcendent like blew my mind, is that they invested such an insane amount of money into a product in an industry and a collecting base that has never seen anything like that before. And I guess you could say that's how it was the inception happened in baseball with Transcendent, but like that type of investment never happens in a brand like WWE, which has so few people involved with it. And up until, a year ago, when the Hulk Hogan, junk wax started going through the roof because some rando dude had like a bunch of PSA 10s that he just wanted to unload, like, fine. But that never happened before. So investing $1 million to build a Transcendent product for a niche brand that you have under your thing, like, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
So in the past, they have been willing to take those types of risks for WWE. Now that it's a boom, why wouldn't you take those risks again? Like, especially now that you have the safety net to fall back on, it seems like.
Well, yeah, because you had record sales like that. You've got,
exactly,
there's money there you can turn around and invest for your future.
Right. And I think it's yet to be seen for this year's Transcendent release, but could you involve digital with that stuff? Like, could you add an NFT based collectible to a Transcendent release?
That's a very good point.
Like, why wouldn't you do something like that? Panini does that for their blockchain stuff they put into National Treasures and Flawless for football and basketball. Why wouldn't you take that opportunity to do that in your wrestling or product like this, or even your baseball product?
Yeah,
like,
you're already heavily involved and invested in that product, that Transcend. Might as well go ahead and throw some digital in there while you're at it.
I'm sure that, and that's the funny thing is, like, these are, a small puddle of ideas that I'm sure are drops in a lake of stuff that Topps would love to do with the money that they have.
Sure.
And people have been complaining non-stop about the cost of wax in WWE going through the roof, the price of singles for WWE going through the roof, regardless if it's vintage or modern. Like, my Becky Lynch collection has probably tripled in value over the last 18 months, and people are pissed about that. And I'm like, I put weeks worth of work into this, just from being on the computer alone, let alone the other stuff money I've spent ripping boxes and buying singles and stuff.
Sure.
Why wouldn't I want it to be as valuable as it could possibly be?
Yeah.
And more importantly, because all of that stuff is happening, all of a sudden Topps is selling out through all of their products. They're able to raise prices and still sell out. The secondary market is delivering value that they can invest more in. Like, it used to be like they didn't want to be upside down on cards, right? I don't know if you've ever sort of understood the business of how they do this, but if I pay Joe Montana $100 for his autograph per card, but it's only worth $75, I'm upside down $25 on that investment.
Yep.
Now, for people like Tom Brady, I have to do that because it's Tom Brady, right? For Patrick Mahomes, I have to do that because Patrick Mahomes, Mike Trout, like all of those people, you have to put them in the product, even if you're upside down. Well, for wrestling, when every autograph that you spend more than like $5 to $10 on, you're going to be upside down on, give or take a few wrestlers. Like, that's a tough sell for a lot of different people in the Topps organization. But now, because all of that stuff is now worth 10 to 15 times what it was, like a Hulk Hogan autograph, you're probably paying him, X number of dollars, and you used to get back probably X. You get back your investment. Now you put a Hulk Hogan autograph in a card, you pay him X, you should get X plus N. So does that mean you invest more in your products, knowing that you can be upside down less on a lot of these, trading card deals? And I'm hoping the answer is yes. The first real product we saw that on was Fully Loaded. And you saw the investment that they made in that product. It was incredible, the amount of investment they put into that product. The second product we will see that in is the new edition of Chrome. So I think once we get Chrome and then Undisputed for this year, I know this is not part of our original discussion, but it kind of all feeds into the same sort of concept, is if I put X number of dollars into Chrome and I get out X number of dollars, that's kind of a loss. Like, I want to make money on this product, more so if I invest more money. If I invest more money, I want to make more money. Now that's going to happen. Undisputed specifically, we saw some of the crazy stuff that they are putting back into Undisputed, having been gone for years, like the fists and all the other stuff. Like, in digital, it's completely the same situation, multiplied by exponential value, because digital has no footprint at Topps other than this small package of people that run the app.
Yeah.
So if you're going to invest $1 million in a new innovation, whether it's NFT or digital, you have to get back much, much more than you would expect to get back on a physical stuff, because you have more leash on a physical side than a digital side.
Yep, it's true. 100%. A lot of good points right there. A lot of good things to also think about what's coming out in the future here. And that's a great idea, by the way. I think having a digital aspect into your Transcendent really makes a buyer for that even more.
Or even the higher end stuff you should put. There should be digital connections to all of that.
Really, well,
I'm
yes.
surprised that there hasn't been, but that's just.
I mean, if you're already investing a big amount of money for something like a Transcendent type of product, it makes sense to try to test the waters with that product right there and see how that works, and then kind of trickle down effect from there.
Yeah, it's really weird sort of situation. Again, because the teams are separate, because the divisions are separate, like everything in digital and physical at Topps are separate. I'm sure it's the same at Panini. I'm almost positive it's the same at Panini. So it doesn't matter who is producing the cards. The digital and physical are almost entirely separate in trading cards. And you see the results are entirely separate. It's a complete silo of both of those divisions, both at Panini and at Topps. Now with Panini, they've incorporated more elements into their products, and they've made it a point. I think because, and the reason, I think I know the reason why that happened. The guy who runs the Panini digital division is a former trading card guy. So I'm not going to say his name because I know who he is. He's on all the Topps apps too. Sure. But like, he has become a very knowledgeable guy for digital, but he started on the trading card side. So there was a lot more relationship there that he could leverage to sort of make those things happen. But if you're looking at Topps, that's not the way it happened at Topps. Topps, it kind of came up, like this instead of like this, right? Panini was like this, and it just kind of branched off, and it was much different of an opportunity for them and that's where the blockchain stuff came from originally, which I don't know enough about how that works, because I've never invested in Panini blockchain stuff, but there's a digital element, there's a physical element, I know, because they release physical signed cards with under the blockchain brand. What that means from a digital perspective, I don't know. Is it NFT? I don't know. Like I don't have enough frame of reference there to make a comment on it. But I know that type of relationship probably exists because there's more trading card people involved with the digital products on Panini, or were used to be part of the trading card people, and they have those relationships reestablished. And there's probably not as much of an adversarial, or doesn't seem to be as much of an adversarial stuff as there probably would be with some place like Topps, whose baby has always been cards. And I know for a fact that the divisions came up out of separate sort of situations. So to create relationships would probably be a lot harder for people who've been there for a long time. I'm just guessing and speculating. But no,
it does make sense. But, someone eventually is going to have to cross over that bridge there and it's like that, and kind of make that, as you said, cross.
Yeah.
It just makes sense. Well, it's a lot of interesting stuff to kind of digest and think about. It's like that. Who knows what's going to happen, man? The future, who knows? I would, someone like me who collects, I would love to potentially invest in something NFT wise or in a digital aspect. It would be kind of cool. I like it because, and what I like about the Slam app, from a very dumbed down version, is that I can go ahead and open packs. I get that feeling of opening packs. I get to have a collection of stuff. I don't have to worry about conditions about anything ever. I don't have to worry about storing anything. It's all right here on my phone. And I like it. It's just, it feeds that need at a very cheap level to open packs,
Well, I think that the most attractive part of that versus NFTs is that the learning curve seems to be a lot less steep. And that is a very loaded situation because the learning curve in the top apps is very steep, but it's even steeper for NFT because there's real money investments and almost stock market like volatility that's involved as well.
Is 100% stock market like.
Yeah, I wrote on my trading card blog, about my experience with the Topps NFTs, and because I had never done anything with NFTs before I bought that first Topps pack, and I just happened to hit the jackpot and was able to turn that investment into some crazy cool stuff that came out of it. But I had no experience. And the learning curve was, I think, steeper on the NFT side because there was so much more stakes to it. Like the stakes to the NFT side make it more of a large learning curve than the stakes involved with the Top apps, because you can be relatively successful spending $5, $10 here and there.
Sure.
NFTs, you have to start with $100 to $1,000, and there is no in between.
Yeah.
The people that went and spent $1,000 on that first Topps drop of baseball NFT made out X better than the people that only spent $100 like me.
Of course.
So the stakes are much higher. The people that get the learning curve much more quickly can be more successful. I was successful only because I had experience in Topps baseball and the Topps apps. I knew that Mike Trout was always valuable in bunt. I knew that Fernando Tatis, I knew that he was valuable in bunt. So who do you think I was in Acuna? Like, who do you think I poured all of my resources in when I opened those packs and I had stuff to trade? Where do you think I put all of that money? It's those three guys. Yep. I had that learning curve from the Topps apps, knowing that, and from baseball cards, where some other investors may not have had that and decided to invest in other pieces. So I started with $100 and walked away with what, like $1,700, only because of my experience in baseball cards and Topps apps. But if I didn't have that learning curve, I would have been like, who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
And there's so much more stakes there. With Topps apps, you spend $5, you still have the cards, you're trading, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's like $5. Who cares?
Yeah, that's true. Well, I hope that, as things kind of progress and we start seeing more things take off in the digital worlds like that maybe you and I can talk again and see where we're at. And
of course, I'm always happy to. And
I love these conversations. I love these conversations.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter all the time, and I'm very opinionated.
Yeah, I know it. Tell them where they can find you at, man.
So, follow me at Sports Cards Uncensored on Twitter, which is at SC Uncensored. You can follow me on Instagram and see all the WWE cards I post at WWE Gellman, Gellman. Or you can visit my blogs, WrestlingCardCentral.com and SportsCardsUncensored.com. Or you can join one of our awesome Facebook groups like Wrestling Cards and Collectibles as well.
I'm in that group.
There's a huge amount of ways to engage. And that's what I love about this community is like, I feel like I've been collecting sports cards for 35 plus years, whatever. I opened my first pack of cards, I think when I was 3 years old. I'm 38 now. And my dad was big into it. And I've never had any experience in a trading card community like I have with WWE. I don't share the same beliefs on a lot of the grading stuff that has taken over vintage, but from a modern perspective, I think there is an unmatched community experience that exists within WWE cards that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Is it just WWE or just like the wrestling community as a whole?
Wrestling, when it comes to wrestling, yeah.
Because I've oftentimes talked about this with other guests before, where you say I don't have the experience in other sports. Now, as a kid, I collected baseball and some football stuff like that, but primarily my entire adult life's always been about wrestling. So I don't know any other community. I've heard other communities are a little more, they could be a little more cutthroat. They could be a little bit more crude at times. Where wrestling
it's about the money,
Wrestling seems to be a little bit more of a family, like a close niche.
Yeah, I mean, like wrestling cards aren't as expensive as all the other ones. So it's sort of created a community around helping people get their, like you can see, like those are all my Becky Lynch cards. Like you can, all of that came from the community, right? I didn't buy a lot of those on eBay, some of them, but a lot of that was done through interacting with the community. And from a digital perspective too, like you make friends much easier, I think, in the WWE community, because you find that niche that you want to exist within, just like you do on the digital apps, and you become known as that person. And you can see exactly how the community reacts to somebody like you love collecting Kurt Angle. Mm-hmm. If you go on the wrestling community forums on Facebook and other places, you say, I'm the Kurt Angle guy, I want to buy all these Kurt Angles, there are going to be people that rush to help you. Mm-hmm. Whereas in football, if you're like, I'm a Tom Brady guy, well, I'm not giving you $1,000 worth of Tom Brady cards for free, but I'll give you a $10 Kurt Angle autograph, right? It's like, it's a much different type of experience. And as a result, the collectors that exist within those communities are driven by the community standards and existing and being that sort of contributing member, rather than just sort of, I want to collect this and hoard as much because it's all worth so much money, right?
Yeah.
Like Tom Brady autographs have always been expensive, like always. now they're just exponentially more expensive.
Yeah.
So for something like this, like even now I can go buy a Becky Lynch autograph for $30.
Yeah.
So, and no, I'm not going to be able to get a lot of the stuff that I've been able to acquire. Like I'm not, but that aspect alone brings people closer together. It's cheap thrills. There's like a lot more ways to participate in ways that don't require a ton of money. That doesn't mean those things don't exist, as we've seen, like Hulk Hogan selling for $22,000 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But you can exist within the wrestling community for a very inexpensive cost, as long as you're willing to, adjust your collecting habits to do that. And I think it doesn't exist anywhere else.
That's true. That's very true. I think you're right. All right. Interesting stuff, man. Really interesting stuff.
Well, thanks again for having me on. It's been great. I'm always happy to hop on.
I enjoy your conversations, man. I enjoy it very much. So anybody watching this episode would like to go ahead and make any kind of comments, suggestions, throw some thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you want. I don't care. And then go buy my buddy. I'm trying to plug my friend Zan all the time. Go buy him a coffee, man. He needs to be caffeinated. He's online all the time. I hope everybody enjoyed this. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future when we can talk some more digital stuff, hopefully.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you, man. Until next time, man, we are out.